It's Tom Verducci with us, leading the league in information to wrap up the week, having returned back from an extended tour of the Grapefruit League. Tom, good morning. I know you spent a lot of time in Mets camp. We'll get to them in a moment. But we want to start with Sandy Alcantara, who we went to break with. A very impressive spring debut after not being on a mound in over 500 days.
Really impressive. And listen, it's probably too early to start talking about trade candidates, but his name is going to be out there. And I think especially for teams like Baltimore, the New York Mets, who are built to go to the World Series and maybe don't have that swing and miss guy horse at the front of the rotation, to me, he'd be the number one guy. So if I'm any team looking at Alcantara getting back on the mound this week or last week, I had to really love what I saw, guys. I know it's only one start, but the early returns, this guy is back. Just check this out. His four-seam fastball velocity, it's actually higher than it was the last time we saw him on a big league mound. That's just after one start in spring training. What really stood out for me, guys, besides the radar gun readings, is the ball coming out of his hand. You hear this a lot, free and easy. What does that mean? Well, let's go back to 2023, and I want to look at his deceleration. Now, deceleration is basically your braking system, how the arm stops after you release. And you see his right hand doesn't follow all the way through, and his glove hand is not really firm to the body. I watched him throw this game against the Mets in spring training, and wow, was I impressed on his deceleration. That hand continues to the thigh, and look at that glove tucked in nice and tight and firm. That to me is telling me his arm strength, his arm health is on point. I'm not worried about that. It's now about just command, the secondaries, all those things that come in time. But these are the signs scouts look for, that free and easy, that deceleration without any kind of restriction. That was really impressive. Just check out the difference. I mean, that's early 2023. He hurt the elbow earlier that season or later that season. And then the spring training. Those are the kinds of things besides the velo that the scouts really look for. And again, listen, this guy to me, I'm not saying the Marlins are going to trade him. They have him under contract for the next few years, but they're going to be in a situation where teams are going to knock on the door. And to me, similar to CC Sabathia, where the Brewers went to Cleveland and said, let's not wait till the end of July. Let's do it before the All-Star break. He's that kind of a difference maker.
Wow, great visuals there on that video.
It's really good. And Tom, the other thing about him is he obviously went to work. You know, he discovered some things he needed to work on. But you got to have a guy that's a workhorse and has a work ethic. And I think that's the other thing that I think they like about Sandy. Am I right?
Harold, I'm glad you brought that up because people talk about Tommy John surgery as like this magic bullet, but it's really the guys who do the work, and it is very hard work. And because you can't throw a baseball for a good 5 or 6 months, a lot of guys really are in tune to their bodies, strengthening in terms of training and flexibility. And Alcantara is one of those hard workers. And I think what you're seeing in his delivery and his release is the product of really hard work to get his body in even better shape.
Tom, I know you went through the report that Major League Baseball issued in December regarding trying to scratch at why these pitcher injuries have risen at such an alarming rate. It makes this time of year, especially for a guy like Sandy Alcantara coming off missing 2 years with arm surgery, pretty important.
Well, it's the most dangerous time of year for pitchers. It's really one of the things that really jumped out at me at the report. When you looked at injury rates for pitchers going on the IL, actually spring training is the most dangerous time. That's where we're seeing the largest increase in pitchers going on the IL. Actually, in the last 4 years, once you get to opening day, the injury rate has gone down. And the report basically brought up the point that maybe guys are getting so much work at max velo in the pitching labs in the offseason, they're strained by the time they get to spring training. This jumped out at me, guys. The average four-seam velocity in the first week of spring training was higher than it was in the regular season 3 years ago. So you're talking about the first week of spring training when half the pitchers aren't even going to be on a major league roster on opening day. They're throwing harder now than they did 3 years ago. That just boggles the mind. So again, the industry has done a great job in terms of increasing velocity, but we've also seen that increase in injury rates. Just a few of the guys now, since the start of February, unfortunately, they're going to need Tommy John surgery. Best of luck for those guys coming back.
Since the start of February? Holy smokes.
You know, it happens, H, but I think one of the items in the report was, you know, look at the off-season training, not just during the season, the inning limits that the industry's done a really good job with during the season.
Let's get you to the Mets. I know you're working on a big story for SI that welcomes everybody into baseball season. The Mets have gotten so much attention. We love spring stories where guys come to camp different And apparently Francisco Alvarez is going to look a little different this year.
Yeah, I was really impressed watching Francisco take BP and live BP. He was really working on hitting the ball to right field. And I went back and looked at the tape, and I was like, wow, this guy's made some major adjustments. Remember him last year, especially in the postseason. He got really, really big here. He started with the bat on his shoulder and would just jerk it up when the pitcher brought the arm back. His hands are high and away from him, and I want you to watch the body tilt here. He's actually going to fall over with this swing, and that's with 2 strikes, guys. That's a 2-strike swing right there. This is spring training this year. The bat is off the shoulder. A little bit of a waggle reminds me of Miguel Cabrera a little bit. And look at the load position. Hands are lower, more connected to the body, and you see the balance. He doesn't have that over tilt that he had last year with the bigger swing. Take a look again here. The setup, completely different. I like it. It's more relaxed. It's not rushed at all. The load position, I like the hands tighter to the body, a little bit lower. And again, the body posture, the body tilt, much better, much more balanced in 2025. So listen, I think this guy is an X factor. The ball jumps off his bat. And if he just uses the whole field and is better about plate discipline in terms of swing decisions, this guy at the bottom of the New York lineup is really going to lengthen this lineup. It's a great lineup to begin with, but I think he's an X factor for them.
That simple adjustment you showed right there allows him to see the ball longer too. So that's going to cut down on the swing and miss and decision making because he's in a better position. Do you have something else? Because I got one more question for Tom.
No, go ahead. We'll move on to the next thing later.
So Matt kind of teased it. You're down in Met Camp working on some things. Can you tease us something you're writing? What's coming out? What's next?
Well, it's a fun team to be around. You saw that last year, right? And I think with the addition of Juan Soto, there's so much energy there. I love the fact the team has high expectations, and they're not running away from those, right? And I'm really impressed with that vibe in the clubhouse. Had a great conversation with Juan Soto about why he's a New York Met, and I had a great talk with him getting inside his mind. He knows hitting, to me, like Greg Maddux knows pitching. It's just next level stuff.
We look forward to that.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, for sure. Man. Hey, I know one more thing, Tom. I know that a couple years ago, the best example I can use of a guy in recent times that's made an adjustment into spring and then taken off is Corbin Burnes, right? His cutter won him a Cy Young Award with the Brewers a couple of years ago. His pitching coach, Chris Hook, and he got to work on that. Maybe something similar in Pittsburgh, and we're not talking about with Paul Skeens.
Yeah, I like that comp because guys make adjustments at the big league level, right? Player development doesn't stop once you get to the big leagues. And I'm thinking about Jared Jones. Maybe he's the next Corbin Burnes. He's certainly got that kind of an arm. He's got an elite 4-seam fastball. I mean, it is elite. Almost 90% of his pitches last year were 4-seamers and sliders. So if you're a right-handed hitter, you just look out over the plate and pretty much the ball's going to be there. Well, this spring he's come up with a 2-seamer to run in on right-handed hitters. And I'm telling you guys, this is going to be a difference maker for him. He broke it out in his first start. 5 of his 27 pitches were 2-seamers. He got 2 outs on those pitches, 1 broken bat. All of them were strikes. Just something to plant in the hitter's mind that now that ball might be running in on you. And I think about guys who got great 4-seam fastballs who on the big league level gain confidence in the 2-seamer. Walker Buehler, Bryce Miller. And look at the metrics on their sinkers, guys. They're almost identical. So he's still going to have the 4-seamer as the foundation pitch. But to me, the best example is Zach Wheeler, who did the same thing, adding that sinker, and nobody in baseball has a better combo platter of 4-seam, 2-seam than Zach Wheeler. He can beat you high with the 4-seams, high spin, high velocity, can beat you in with the 2-seamer running in. Jared Jones I think he's going to go next level. We know he's got a great arm, but getting that one other option here to keep hitters honest, especially righties inside, that could be a difference maker. He might not throw it a ton, but even if it's 10, 15% of the time, that's going to change the way hitters approach him.
How about a couple of shekels on Jared Jones down the board on National League Cy Young futures? That's a lot of fun to watch. Tom, great information as always. We appreciate you being with us on this Friday. Have a good weekend, and we'll visit with you again next week.